Um, uh, Great to be here. My name is Max Mullen. I'm one of the co-founders of Instacart. And just so I understand my audience here, who here's heard of Instacart? If you raise your hands. Oh, wow, that's like everybody. Who's a customer? Okay, cool. Thank you for being a customer. We've been around for 5 years, and we're about 300 employees in 11 offices in America, and we have thousands of part-time employees across the country as well. And I want to share some of my experiences in developing our culture over the last 5 years. So these are the three things I think we should talk about. So one, why should we care about startup culture, right? Why should all of you care? Two, what is it exactly? How do we define it? And then three, where does culture come from? And how can you form it when you're starting a company? Let me give you two reasons why I think you should care about startup culture. This is reason number one. This is people searching for startups on Google in America. Okay, so this is a piece of evidence I offer you, and you can see that startups on the blue line and the red line were sort of just as exciting as each other until about 2010, and then something happened, and startups really took off, and they're sort of at peak excitement right now. The red line is searches for Girl Scout cookies. And you can see that every February when they sell the Girl Scout cookies, people get really excited about Girl Scout cookies. And for some of these years, Girl Scout cookies were more exciting to the American public than startups, but no more. So startups are on the rise, and regular people care about startups, and so that's something to keep in mind. And then also, startup culture is something that's going everywhere, right? Big companies want to be more like startups. They do press releases talking about how they're going to have a startup-like culture and do more innovation. And startup culture is really becoming everywhere. And I'll give you another piece of evidence. You guys have seen this show, right? Silicon Valley, yeah, on HBO. Mainstream show, all about startup culture. One of the previous speakers mentioned this show. And I don't watch the show, but I was surprised to hear that Instacart was on the show a couple of weeks ago. Some people texted me and said, dude, did you just see Instacart was on the show? So further evidence that startup culture is everywhere, and that if you are starting a company, you need to be considerate and intentional about your culture, because eventually, if you're successful, your culture will merge with mainstream culture. And so really the fate of mainstream culture is in your hands if you're starting a company. And then the second reason why you should care about culture is this. And I was talking to a friend of mine who's starting a company with two co-founders. They just built the first version of their product, and they don't really know exactly how it's going to land. And I was asking him, like, what's it like? Like, I forget, it was 5 years ago when we started Instacart. What's it like? And he said it's like a Tom Hanks movie. And I was like, oh, like Forrest Gump, like startup life's like a box of chocolates. You don't know what you're gonna get. He's like, no, like Castaway. Because you're like Tom Hanks. You're marooned on a desert island. You're in a plane crash. You're by yourself, and all you have is this raft, which is your startup, and some FedEx boxes. Wilson, that's right. And so you guys are Tom Hanks if you're starting a company, and this raft is your startup, and you do what comes naturally, right? You head towards the open water, and you try to get off this island where there's nobody, right? And try to find some customers or some users, and you see this wave in the distance, and then as you get closer, the wave gets bigger, and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to paddle past this wave, and you paddle your raft as fast as you can, and the wave crashes you down the first time you try to do this, and you get hurt, and it sucks. And the second reason why you should care about startup culture is because, and in the movie there's actually this shot, so like 4 years pass, right, and you've either done something right with your culture or you haven't. You become this badass guy, and you build this badass raft, and you launch it into the sea, and now you have a co-founder, Wilson, and you paddle the raft over the waves, and you end up in open water, and you get rescued, and they put you on a jet, and you go about the rest of your life. And so the second reason you should care about startup culture is because startup culture is the one thing that will help you build a big enough raft, a badass enough raft to get over these waves and have escape velocity in whatever business you're doing. Okay, so now you care about startup culture. What is it? Who's got some ideas about what it is? This is a picture of people at Instacart playing ping pong and video games, and there's snacks. Who thinks it's about snacks? Okay, it's not about snacks. Okay, who thinks it's about ball pits? We once had a ball pit in one of our offices. Who thinks it's about ball pits? A couple of hands. Who thinks it's about dogs, having dogs in your office? Maybe put your t-shirt on a dog. Who thinks it's about dogs in ball pits? Okay, it's none of those things. Who thinks about taking naps? Having a nap room, those are cool things. Or having parties. Parties are cool. It's not about parties. It's about these 5 things, and I think we can really talk about these 5 things and give you a framework for thinking about culture. So values, stories, spaces, traditions, and rewards. And I'll talk about each of these things. And you can see in the background somebody's got a carrot. That's our logo, a carrot tattoo on their neck, but don't worry, that's just a temporary tattoo. So values. Culture is about what you value. And there's good and bad news here. As founders of the company and as early employees, you already have values. Like, you definitely value something. And what you value is going to become your culture. So if you're a bunch of jerks, you're going to probably build a culture that's full of a bunch of jerks. And if you're super talented engineers, you're probably going to build a culture that's about super talented engineers. So this is myself and my 2 co-founders, and we've got these shirts on. We like shirts at Instacart. You can kind of read them and get an idea for our personalities. But the most important thing is that your values as a company will come from the founding team. And you may or may not want to choose to articulate them in sort of a list of pithy words. Instacart has done this, and some companies do this. Other companies choose not to write them down, but every company values something. You think about Apple, they may not have stated corporate core values, but obviously Apple values simplicity, and we know that by just looking at their products. So I want to show you one of Instacart's values. We call this one every minute counts. And at Instacart, we're a 1-hour grocery delivery service. And so every minute really does count when we're delivering groceries in an hour. And also, we're saving our customers time. And so when you add up all the time that we save our customers, those minutes add up and count. And then finally, a third reason why this is one of our values is that we are all about efficiency. Our business is only going to be successful if we can be very efficient in the way that we do our work. So we use this value all the time at work to sort of mean moving faster and finding a faster way to do things. I'll give you another really cool value from a different company. This is a value that Twilio has. You guys know Twilio, the telephony company? They have a value called draw the owl. And is anybody familiar with the internet meme, draw the owl? Yeah, a few people. So it goes like this. How do you draw an owl? Step 1, you draw some circles. Step 2, you draw the rest of the fucking owl, because there's no instruction manual for a startup. And so at Twilio, you can imagine people in a meeting saying like, I don't exactly know how we're going to do this project. We probably need to do a bunch of research. And someone's just like, dude, just draw the fucking owl. Like, figure it out. So that's their value. And that's uniquely Twilio. And I think when you write down your values, you don't want to write down things like integrity. Integrity's obvious. You want to write down things that are uniquely you and that can express the values that you hold uniquely. Certainly, I don't take credit for that value, and certainly you shouldn't copy that value. You should make your own, and you can read up about Twilio's values. So the second piece of culture is stories, and stories are a way that you can transmit your values to other people. And the cool thing about telling stories is that you don't have to be there for it to work. So you can tell a story to your employees, and then your employees can tell a story to other people. And that's a way that the culture can be passed on. So I'll tell you a quick story that we tell people sometimes at Instacart. Way back in the early days, we were looking at the site. We didn't have that many customers. And so we have this page where you can watch everything that all the customers are doing. You know, they did a search, they added something to cart, they checked out. And so I was watching this page, and I saw this guy. I think his name was Bruce. And Bruce was shopping in Whole Foods on our site. And he was searching, and he searched for butter, and he added butter to cart. And he was searching for, like, broccoli. He added broccoli to cart. And he searched for cream cheese, and there was 0 results for cream cheese. And I was like, 0 results for cream cheese? I'm pretty sure Whole Foods has cream cheese. Why is that just not showing up in our search results? And we have a value at Instacart called solve for the customer. This is the idea of going the extra mile for the customer and making sure we put them first in all of our decisions. So I'm sitting there looking at Bruce using the site, and I'm like, well, obviously there's got to be cream cheese, so I'm just going to make it up. So I go into our admin tool, and I make an item called cream cheese, and I just call it Whole Foods Market cream cheese. I don't know what cream cheese costs, but I was like, $3.99 seems fair. So I just put $3.99 in there. I went on Google Images, and I found this picture of cream cheese, and I attached it to the item, and then I sent him the link. I went on our little chat program, and I said, hey, Bruce, I'm Max. I work at Instacart, and noticed you were searching for cream cheese, and you couldn't find it. And here's a link to it. I found it for you. And then I watched the admin page, and nothing happens. And then he adds it to cart. And I was like, success, right? We successfully helped Bruce in a very small but important way. And if every small and important decision that everyone at your company makes all day long works out like that, then those people are really embodying the value. And that's just a story that you can tell that kind of makes the value real. It's all fine for me to say, hey, we like to put our customers first, but telling a story to show how that actually works in practice is kind of the way to communicate that. Spaces. Spaces are another piece of your culture. And spaces can maybe sometimes mean your office, and sometimes they can mean other things. So spaces reflect the culture that you set up physically. So I'll give you some examples. This is our first office. This is my kitchen. And if you're starting a company, your house is going to be your first office. It's actually the best office. It's free. It's private. You already live there. It's very easy, no commute. And it sort of sets the tone for your culture depending on where you start out. So this is our first office. Our second office looks like this. It's like this small 750 square foot room in Soma. And we filled it with like cheap IKEA furniture that we built ourselves, and we just filled it with people until it was like a fire hazard. And that's exactly what you want for your first office. You want a big fire hazard, and you just want to fill it with people so there's just a ton of energy and like not enough conference rooms and not enough bathrooms. And then we got this really unique office for our second office. And in this space, which was a house, a 5-bedroom house, we had tons of good times. We had this dinner table where we could all sit and have meals together, and this really set the tone for our culture. And I think we'd be a very different company if we hadn't spent about a year in this house in the early days of Instacart. This is a shower. One guy had a desk in a shower. That's Nick. There were desks in the bathrooms. One guy, my co-founder Brandon, he had a desk over the bidet. There was a bidet in the house. So the bidet desk. You've heard of standing desk, but never a bidet desk. And so unique spaces are also an important part can be an important part of your culture. This is an all-hands meeting in 2014, and the entire company was in our biggest conference room, and we barely fit, as you can see. And like the speaker was standing right here, and this was actually Mary Meeker, who's a board observer on our board, and she literally said, like, I think this is a fire hazard. Like, I don't think we should do this. And I was like, it's gonna be fine, Mary. We're gonna leave the door open, and it'll be fine. And she gave her presentation. And this is what we looked like in 2014 when we reached 100 people. And I tell you, we packed people into this office. There was not enough desks, not enough conference rooms, not enough bathrooms. And that was exactly how we liked it and created the energy that I think we needed in this space. This is our freight elevator. So there was not enough conference rooms, so you'd have a meeting in the freight elevator. You'd start on the 3rd floor, and then maybe the janitor would need to use the elevator, so like your meeting would end on the 1st floor. I think that was kind of cool. And then now we're a little bit of a bigger company. We have a much bigger office, and in our office, we have a grocery store in our office, which is cool because we're a grocery company, so that's kind of one of our new unique spaces. And by far, the coolest office that I've ever been to with the most unique spaces is Airbnb's office. This is what their atrium looks like, and I'm probably gonna get somebody in trouble here, but you can actually just go into their atrium without checking into security or anything, just like go on Google Maps and figure out where their office is and go there, and just absorb the energy of this office. It's so cool. And every conference room and space in their office is modeled after an Airbnb listing that they liked. And so they have just the most unique spaces of any startup. So that's spaces, a very important part of making your culture real. Okay, the fourth thing, traditions. So traditions are a way of kind of doing whatever you're passionate about and having these shared sort of traditions across your company. So I'll give you an example of some of our traditions. They're probably going to seem totally random to you, but these are just the way we celebrate things. So one of our traditions is pranking people. Every startup pranks people. Sometimes we fill people's offices with balloons. We recently raised money, and we filled a balloon up for every $1 million that we raised. And then some dude like accidentally popped one, and I was like, dude, it was $1 million. Be careful. We also love to celebrate people's birthdays. If your birthday happens at Instacart, your desk might get pranked. You might get your face on a cake. Maybe we make you a really unique cake. I bet you guys have never seen a tater tot cake. That's a tater tot cake. Have you ever seen a grilled cheese cake? No. And you got to get creative, right? Because everybody's birthday has to one up the other. So we made a sushi cake. And you guys have never seen a sushi cake. These guys have never seen a sushi cake either, because that's why they're taking that picture. So whatever your traditions are, make sure they're unique and that you celebrate them with a lot of passion. And by far the best tradition that I have ever seen at a startup comes from Gusto. Gusto is a payroll company with a really amazing culture. And when you walk into Gusto's office, you have to take your shoes off. It doesn't matter if you work there, if you're a guest, if you're just passing by. You have to take your shoes off, and then everybody who's in the entire office has their shoes off, and you just feel in this weird way like you're at home. I'm not kidding. So that might be one someone should copy at some point, because that's just so good. Okay, and the last thing is rewards. And this is actually really, really important. You have to live your culture day in and day out. And you not only have to live it, but you have to reward people for living it themselves. And you have to show examples of what it's like to be a steward of your culture. And so at Instacart, this is a picture of an Instacart All Hands. We recognize people against our core values at every All Hands. And so I'll give you an example of one of these recognitions. So we have a value that's called go far together, as in the African proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So our business development team, 2 of the people on our business development team, they had to take 2 meetings in the Midwestern United States that were back to back. One was in the evening and the next one was in the next morning. And there was no way to fly from one of those cities to the other. There was no direct flight. And so what they did is they flew to one city, they took the meeting, they got in a rental car, and they drove through the night to get to the other meeting. And they literally went far together in order to make these meetings happen for our retail customers. And so we honored them in front of the whole company, and everybody claps. And the point of doing this is not necessarily to honor the people who lived the value. That's obviously great. But the more important thing is that everybody else gets to see a really great example of what it's like to uphold the values. So that's one kind of reward. And another kind of reward is something super simple. We love shirts, like I said. And Instacart has produced many, many shirts, but we never produce the same shirt twice in the same color. And so if you're walking around the office and you see somebody with the black on black Instacart shirt, you can kind of know, oh man, that guy's been here for many years, because that shirt hasn't been made for 2 or 3 years from now. So this is kind of a really subtle way of rewarding people, rewarding their tenure. So that's rewards. And so just to wrap up here, like, one way to think about your culture is to think, what would happen if I wasn't around as a founder, right? Because you might not be around one day, but more importantly, as your company grows, you're not going to be in every meeting, you're not going to be in every room, and you need everybody to behave according to the culture. And so you need to set really strong culture up so that when you're not there to sort of make every decision and be involved in every decision, that the people that you've hired can make those decisions accurately and according to your culture. So ask yourself, what would happen if I was not around? And if you can say that all the decisions would be made exactly how you want them to be made, then you probably have a strong culture guiding your company. So just lastly here, as I mentioned, culture is what you value, and the stories and spaces and traditions and rewards that you set up around your culture will shape it and make sure that it can exist without you. So that's what I think about startup culture. Thank you.
Do we have time? You know, I have to say, you know, you're a $3.5 billion company, but I have to say that's cool. You guys keep it real, and I really like that presentation, because I think I always thought, like, after 100 people, like, it just isn't as fun anymore or as startup-y, but I guess there's hope. So awesome, Max. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And if you like this, or if you didn't like this, tell me on Twitter. Everybody backstage is going to tell me, oh, you did such a great job, it was so insightful. But if you found something super valuable or you disagree, let me know on Twitter so I can make this talk better. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Max. I can take it back.